So,
Oh,
For the
yeah.
IRS
No
tax.
pressure.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
Oh, you're right. This is the last. This is the
That's
last
a terrible
report.
idea.
I'm gonna
This is
sit
the
back
last
here so that I can.
I think it is.
and then I can do
Is it?
something.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember the schedule.
Well, next one's the 9th, would be on the 9th, and after that,
So there is another one.
Then
so
it's
there
fine.
should be one on the 9th.
There should be probably one a week from now too.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is.
One more.
Andrew's just trying to make it the last one.
So today, you want to do?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So first up, we have a double act today, and I thank Talha and Yang for stepping in the last minute and volunteering, or being volunteered, as you should say. But they're both going to give 20-minute talks on basically two papers that they've presented recently at conferences. Talha is going to present a paper he presented at
This is at
SWDM.
yes, the social web for disaster management
And
workshop.
and Yang is going to be giving a presentation on the paper she presented at CSSSA. So first over to Talha on Flint and blame.
Yeah, I presented this paper at a conference on information and knowledge management about a month ago, I believe. So actually I collaborated with a friend at Michigan, Flint, in this paper. So he had the data already. I didn't collect. Actually, I collected the second data set that I'll show later. But our main data set is collected by a system of Arizona State University. It's called Tweet Tracker. So we had the data, and my friend asked me what to do with this data. So then I've been reading on this stuff and came up with this an important topic actually in political science as well as disaster research. It is how the blame process works, how people blame after disasters. So this Flint water crisis, so here is the overview of my talk and actually the work itself. So the first, so there is something called sociology of disasters, or I call it traditional social scientific design. Came up with some hypotheses, actually 4 hypotheses regarding to this Flint water crisis. So what I do is first I have these 4 hypotheses, then using social media data I operationalize these practical hypotheses in some ways, and I'll discuss this, and then interpret the results with statistical tests. So there is one theoretical contribution by testing these 4 theories or hypotheses. Then the methodological contribution is in disaster research, sociology of disasters. Social media has not been used ever before that I know of. So this is the first study using social media to answer these kind of questions. And I talk about how social media could be used as a retrospective cohort study or quasi-experimental design, some people say. So this is the to give a big picture. So in CSS here in our department we are mostly focused on here number 2 and 3, but this particular study is mostly related to this part 1. So so these 4 categories is how I define actually computational social science. So one is social information retrieval and observational data analysis. So this was a good fit for this conference, so I presented there. So, and another thing, so I introduced this subfield called computational social science of disasters, and the sister field of this is crisis informatics. What this crisis informatics people do is that they basically study the study of the design, uses and consequences of information and communication technologies in times of crisis. So they are not particularly interested in traditional social scientific questions, but they are trying to find, for example, how this ICT used during crisis, and they try to improve humanitarian response, basically, disaster management. So it isn't, so they're on the kind of disaster management tasks, and improving algorithm, trying to figure out in a very short amount of time, like there is this thousands or millions of TVs are coming, and they need to kind of summarize and find information out of this for disaster managers. So this is what crisis informatics do. They are not interested in this social scientific questions in general. So in this disaster research, the Quarantella is actually maybe the one of the most important figures in the field, and many actual disaster researchers emphasize that the knowledge base, empirical base, is weak. So one reason for this is because of the nature of the disasters. So a disaster happens and the researchers cannot go there because of the difficulties. So one advantage of actually social media or big data is that it is always on being recorded. Even if you cannot go there, you know that they are recorded and you can work on them later, as we did in this study. Another factors for motivation are that in the political science literature, political scientists say that a key issue in political decision making is that this attribution of responsibility and blame carries far more weight in voting behavior than that of credit. So political scientists, so when people decide on this, make political decisions, they look at this wrongdoings of the politicians rather than looking at their credits. So similarly, this is a popular political scientist, Iyengar, says that individuals tend to simplify political issues by reducing them to questions of responsibility. So in this respect, this study is important for political science.
Can I just very quickly ask about the first quote says, we need more studies that have a weak empirical base. What is a weak empirical base and why would you want? It sounds like something you wouldn't want.
What do you find about it?
It says we need
So yeah,
more
so actually
studies
this
that have a
that
weak
refers
empirical
to
base.
that refers to widely believed findings actually, not the kind of studies.
Okay. So it's basically saying that currently we have studies that have a weak empirical base and we don't want.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what makes more sense.
So this, when does blame occur in disasters? So this is a traditional way of looking at this, at the sociology of disasters. Basically, there are time phases and the system levels from individual to all the international level. So blame occurs. So this is when the disaster hits. This is before the disaster, when the disaster hits, right after it, and after at the recovery phase. Recovery phase includes restoration and reconstruction, and we see this blame processes happening at the community level. So yeah, Flint is in Michigan. There are big cities next to it is Detroit and some other cities. So the thing is, the Flint actually was using Detroit's waters. So I'm just giving background here. Detroit's water sources, but they changed it to this Flint River because this Detroit kept increasing the price, so they changed it. Then Detroit Water Department gave a notice that they would terminate its contract. And basically, after they switched to Flint River, complaints started. So the water actually was corrosive, and there was high amount of lead in the water, and there are many health problems related to this new water source, the Flint River. So, Flint Water Advisory Task Force actually published a report on this. I think the final report came out in May 2016, and the report points to the guilty, and it says it's a story of government failure at all levels. So, from city to state, and like emergency managers, environmental quality departments, health departments, everybody has some part of this. So in January 2016, the President Obama declared federal state of emergency, and actually our data is starting right on that date. So here is our data. So our data actually starts on January 2015 until the end of June. So we collected all the tweets. Actually, this is Twitter gives 1% sample, having the words Flint and Flint water crisis hashtag in it. So this is kind of the distribution, and the tweet tracker has 50,000 tweets limit per day. On only one day we hit this limit on the Democratic Party debate that took place in Flint. So other than that, this all the day we have less than 50,000 tweets. And if you look at this, so this is when the federal state of emergency declared. Then there was also a Republican Party debate in Detroit. So those days people talk about this Flint water crisis. Then there was this Michigan primaries for both parties on these days. And here you see there's a peak here. It is when Obama visited Flint on May 4th. So I created this using Matplotlib's animate function. By the way, I created this GIF from pandas data frame. Just
So what was the filter you used, Talha, to actually determine that these were, they have to say Flint or Flint water, say hashtag Flint water crisis?
Either of this should be in the tweet.
But what if it's somebody from California saying, like, you know, there's a hashtag Flint water crisis, and I mean, is it possible that there are tweets that have nothing, that they're not by knowledgeable people from Flint, for example, but they're just people anywhere in the country saying?
Yeah, so this is the US. Yeah, if they talk about Flint water crisis, we get it anywhere in the US.
Anywhere in the world.
In the world.
Do you have a
I'm not
sense,
sure.
like, from geocoding, do you have a sense of like how many of them are in Michigan or how many of them are in
Yeah,
Flint?
actually we have it in the. It is one of the
Okay.
hypotheses.
Okay.
So again, so this is now. In the next slides, I will go over 4 hypotheses, and for each hypothesis, I will first talk about the social theories behind it. Then put the hypothesis. Then I talk about how I operationalize that using social media data, and how I interpret results. So first, starting from the sources for blame. So the theory says that the blame could be rational as well as irrational. So when it is rational, so when does it happen? It doesn't happen in all disasters, not after all disasters. So the rational explanation is the chief desire is to prevent reoccurrence of the occurrence of the this event, right? So this happens when conventional explanations failed for the disasters. When the responsible agents violate basic moral standards, here in this case they didn't have the basic human right, access to water, clean water. For actually it took about a year, more than a year, for them to get this clean water. So, and when the responsible agents perceived to be unwilling to take action to remedy the situation, so another explanation for blame is irrational. So if you are, for example, already have some frustrations then against the higher ups, then this come out after a disaster. So to whom it is directed, the rational explanation says again who has the power to remedy this situation, and irrational explanation says so all political authority. So in this case the ultimate accountability for Michigan executive branch decisions rests with the governor. So, and another thing, many officials actually resigned. So EPA officials, emergency managers who were state appointed, and some others were fired, and some other responsible parties' effective terms ended. So only actually the governor left kind of in the position and the president. So and also both Democratic presidential candidates demanded the governor to resign. He's still on duty, by the way. So so we expect, all this considered, the amount of blame directed toward the governor exceeds any other agent. So to test this, so we first came up with 8 candidates that are likely to be blamed using this Food and Water Advisory Task Force report and the social theories here. And what we did is I simply randomly sampled 2,000 tweets, then got 5 chunks of 200 tweets from this random sample. So the reason I did this is to measure the inter-rater reliability. Each of the samples has to be is created to have 10% overlap with any other sample. So this is I first sampled 2,000 tweets, then sampled 5 chunks of 200 tweets from this 2,000. Anyway, so how we interpret the results? So we look at this number of tweets coded per candidate. Then I also look at this flies kappa statistic for the inter-rater reliability. So these are the results. So we had 5 raters, R0 to R4. So each again coded 200 tweets, and in total we have 892 tweets. Since there was some overlap, it isn't 1,000. So the mostly blamed candidate, the person is a Michigan governor, as expected, as the hypothesis suggested. So Snyder, the governor, has been blamed 3.5 times more than the second most blamed agent here. It is the general government statement. So these others, this is some blamed Democratic ideology, others blamed Republicans in general, Republican ideology, emergency managers, EPA, Flint mayor, president. So our kind of first hypothesis is supported by this data.
So, are the unsure, are they the tweets you identified as blaming someone but you weren't sure
So
who they were
yeah,
blaming?
so actually this unsure is, yes, exactly. So this is the raters, coders were unsure who this tweet blames.
So it's, you thought it was a blaming tweet, but you didn't know who.
Exactly.
But not just Talha, also several other people.
Yeah, actually I didn't do. So there are
Yeah.
5 coders, and this is actually in this flies kappa. So if it is between 0.4 and 0.6, it is called a moderate agreement of rate between the raters. So most of the time it is between 0.4 and 0.6. So we have a moderate agreement. So kind of a verification step here for this results.
So, so these were hand coded.
Yes.
So a number of people read each tweet, hand coded them to fit one of these
Yes.
categories. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, so the second hypothesis and the is that
Before we go to the second one, Talha, just
Yeah.
so say again. Say what is the hypothesis?
So
that-
this the
that
first one
supports?
was our expectation to have for Governor Snyder to be blamed the most, basically. So based on this theory, so it is just a practical hypothesis. The amount of blame directed to the governor exceeds any other agent. So yeah, some other hypotheses are more interesting than this, but this was kind of, and like in general in this paper especially, I was also interested in what kind of questions first, if the social media can answer these kind of theories before going into more challenging theories or hypotheses. So most of the hypotheses are not challenging here, so they are what I mean by challenging, the researchers in the field mostly agree on this already. I'm just looking at finding ways to operate social media and this for further research. Yeah.
Did you differentiate between news articles and news articles that blame the governor versus individuals?
No, it's part of future work
Oh,
plans
okay.
actually. Thank you. Yeah, it's important, like how the media saw it and how individuals interpreted the issue. So an interesting hypothesis is about this partisan predisposition. It's about, so there is something called partisan bias, right? So if you're a Republican, you are more likely to blame a Democrat, and if you are a Democrat, you are more likely to blame a Republican. So this is basically it. Social identity theory is a well-known theory in social psychology. So there is this in-group favoritism, out-group hostility, and this political projection of this is partisan bias. And there is a nice paper on this. There are many papers, just one. So the hypothesis is, so blaming an entire party or an ideology upon a particular crisis predisposes him against that party. So this is an important statement. So based on this axiom, maybe we can say, individuals who assign responsibility to the Republican Party or ideology show greater negative feeling toward the governor, which is a Republican, than those who blame Democratic Party or ideology. So what I did in this one is, first I identified the tweets explicitly blaming parties or ideologies among the coded tweets. So we had this, right? So here two of them are Democrats and Republicans. So these are number of tweets. So some tweets says this disaster is a result of Democratic ideology or Democratic Party, without singling out the mayor or the governor or anyone, and the same for this Republican ideology. So what I'm saying is, if someone is blaming Republican ideology for this disaster, it makes him anti-Republican. So if someone is anti-Republican here, he is more likely to blame the Republican governor, basically. So yeah, this is how I identify predisposed people who tweeted or retweeted at least one of these tweets. So I have these tweets, and I get to pick people who tweet or retweet. Then from those people, I identified other tweets of these people mentioning governor, mayor, or emergency managers using keyword filtering. So I get tweets of these people, predisposed people, who retweeted this anti-Republican or anti-democratic tweets, and get other tweets that are exclusively talking about the governor or the mayor. Then I compare the sentiments of each predisposed group on their stance toward the governor, and I do the same thing for the mayor. And I'm checking if they're drawn from the same distribution using a two-side homograph similar test. So there are two groups. One group is blaming Republicans, Republican ideology. The other group is blaming Democratic ideology for disasters. And these are their sentiment scores on their tweets exclusive talking about the governor. If the tweet mentioning his name, so there I do this using like regular expressions and keyword matching. If the tweet talks about the governor, then I get the sentiment score. And here by comparing this, the null hypothesis that the two samples, blaming Republicans and blaming Democrats, are from the same distribution is rejected for the governor. So there weren't enough data for the mayor, but so we can say that this people who are blaming Republican ideology are more negative in their tweets, in their stance toward the governor. So this is statistically different. So as you can see, so the median is more negative here than the blaming Democrats. So it is the reverse here. As you can see, the median who blame people who blame Republican ideology has more positive stance toward the mayor. Mayor is a Democrat, and so people who blame Democratic ideology are more negative toward the mayor. So you see this swap. So, but this isn't statistically significant. I didn't have enough data for this. So this result supports our hypothesis. Our hypothesis supports. Any questions on this? The third one is about the geographies. So the Tauber's first law of geography says everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things. And the environmental vulnerability theory suggests that individuals who are at greater risk are more likely to express their concerns. They are. So using these two.
Talha,
Yes.
where did you get the environmental vulnerability theory? Do you know who came up with that or who
Can
cited
look at that.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, this environmental vulnerability interpreted differently by different people. But this is one of the things. So it is given different meanings. So our hypothesis goes then: expression of concern per capita is to be the highest for the city of Flint, for the people of Flint, followed by other cities in the same county, followed by other cities and counties in Michigan. So how I operationalize this? So here in my hypothesis, I never, by the way, mention tweet or social media. So these hypotheses are not theoretical either; they are practical. But then I operationalize using social media. So first, I identify users' locations by looking at this in the Twitter profile. There is a field called location field. So I get this user's location field. Then using the regular expressions, I get to the city. Then actually clean it so convert it into geographic coordinates, ECD. So this is the first thing, identifying user's location. The second thing that I do is I'm just normalizing number of tweets originated in ECT by the population of the city. So these are normalized. I do something similar for the counties. So these are the results. So again, these are per capita. So most of the tweets come from Flint, Michigan. Then like 4 of the 10 most concerned cities are from the county of Genesee. And 6 of the 10 counties happen to be from Michigan. These are the counties. DC second, by the way. About this water crisis tweets. This is per capita again. So again, our hypothesis is supported here. The third one.
Do you have numbers per county?
Yeah.
These are the top 10, but would you say 50% come from Flint, Michigan, or only 10% come from Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, I heard later.
It would be interesting if it was a power law distribution, right?
Yes, it would be.
The fourth and the last hypothesis is on the peer effect. So the Twitter is not only a social networking platform but also a news media. So if we think of it as a social network platform, we know that individuals be friends with similar others due to homophily, and friends influence each other, and this is called peer effect. So these theories and support are used to support our hypothesis. Also, if you think of Twitter as a news media, there is a selective exposure theory suggests that these people follow news channels that are ideologically close to them. Also, another theory suggests that complaining has a positive feedback. If you hear a complaint, it is more likely you start complaining too. So these individuals who express negative emotions on the food and water crisis have friends more negative than that of individuals who talk more positively about the crisis. So here is how I operationalize this. So I design a retrospective cohort study here, and controlling for location just to not to mess up. So I just use the flinters here in the study. So the flinters who had at least 3 but no more than 20 tweets in our data set, I filtered them. So some of them are talking negatively about the Flint and Flint water crisis, some of them are positively. So
What do you mean talk positive?
so this is actually average sentiment score are below 0 or above 0.
Sentimental score.
Average sentiment score of the tweets
And
of
how
some
did you calculate that score?
using Vader sentiment analysis tool.
So it's a standard tool.
It's a popular one. Yeah, it's a popular one. It was published in ICWSM, I believe. So it is reliable. And actually, I'm using this NLTK implementation of this, which is actually much more faster than the original author's implementation anyway. So, so I'm using that one, and like it's an important, and it is actually better suited for tweets, for social media actually. The point of this using Vader is that it's actually kind of rule based, and it kind of considers like if you have like 3 exclamation mark, it becomes kind of, it increases the negativity or positivity, I believe. So in the paper it's all mentioned. So so what I did is I first get the volunteers who talk positively or negatively. So I now collected a new data set, create a new data set. I collected their friends. What I mean by friends is, actually the term friends used by Twitter is used as who someone follows. If you follow someone, it means he is your friend, but not necessarily.
That's a loose definition of friendship. Sorry, go on.
So because like you can see the reason I do this instead of followers getting friends is you can see his tweets and you can be influenced.
So you're saying if you tweet something negative about Flint, then you look through the history of that person's tweets and you determine whether they are a negative person
So
in terms of the sentiment scores, or negative about Flint only.
Flint only. If a person, okay, so there are 2 groups. So one group talks negatively about the Flint water crisis. Then I get their friends, means who they follow, and look at their sentiment scores on Flint water crisis.
Okay. Did
So
you
you do like a snowball sample.
Yes.
No, but it isn't a snowball sample.
One layer.
It's a selective
Yeah.
sample.
It's one layer and
Yeah, one layer. So yeah, I get their friends. So this is the whole hypothesis. If they are affected, kind of by their friends, I'm just looking at this, kind of trying to see this peer effect or a clustering or a homophily actually,
and you
not
clean,
necessarily.
and you clean for retweets, right?
I don't consider. I
So if you say something negative and I retweet you,
Mhm.
and did you check for duplications between accounts?
So how I did is, I have this 665,000 tweets in my original dataset, dataset. So I got the flinters, and actually,
Well, imagine that you didn't need to account for it because he wants to identify the people that are blaming the governor or whoever else. So if I retweet someone else's tweet, then that's relevant because it's saying two people rather than one are blaming the governor or
But the
whoever
question
it
is,
is.
retweet doesn't necessarily mean an endorsement.
Does it not?
No.
Not really, no.
I mean, in the sense that none. I mean, you can the sentiment in analysis doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean
Right, but
that you get the right sentiment right. But I would assume that retweet normally means an endorsement. doesn't
but
it?
remember my earlier question? Are these news? Could these be news accounts?
so
If you-
the reason I selected the number of tweets on this topic between 3 to 20, I didn't. So here is the distribution. So of tweet of flinters. Number of so y-axis is number of tweets of each flinter. There are 262 people here on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have their number of tweets. So I got the flinters who tweeted more than 2 tweets and less than 20. So if it is more than 20, this journalists come in. So I filter them out by looking at the number of tweets. Is it?
There's an issue with that, but I'll talk to you about
Okay.
it after.
Yeah. So first, let's put it back. Okay, this was for the last one, just over there. So I collect their friends, and actually I collected this about 123,000 new accounts, and actually 8,000 of them happen to be in our original data set. So I looked at their tweets and compared them. So the cohort is the volunteers who talk negatively about the crisis, and this is the friends of the cohort's sentiment scores on the flint crisis topic, on the flight crisis tweets. So they also talk more negatively than the friends of the control group, who happen to talk positively actually on the flint water crisis. So two groups' friends are significantly different from each other with 95% confidence level according to this Kolmogorov-Simonov test. So this also kind of is supported. This it isn't necessarily contagion of complaining. It might be homophily here as well. Yeah, this is also actually supported. So the conclusion. So I tested for hypotheses. So they were not very challenging in nature. But again, as Popper says, we need to continually keep testing this theories, hypotheses for them to be theory. And in the sociology of disasters literature, this is the first study that uses social media for this purpose. And this is it.
Thank you very much, Talha. Any questions for Talha? Was that a 20-minute talk? At your conference?
Yeah. It took longer here, but I was good at that for that timing.
Yeah, and you can see here basically, some of the words that are associated with the tweets that you're
Yeah, so
looking
for
at.
example, in May, when Obama showed up, you see this Obama, his name here. So this is basically the cloud.
And I know it's time and things, and Yang has volunteered to go another week. so you don't have to, unless you.
Oh, okay.
So I think,
I was
unless
gonna
you
say,
guys want to
Yan can
continue.
do it in 15 minutes.
Yan can do it, talk in 15 minutes and rush it quickly, or we can let her have a full slot later on if that would be more fair for Yang and for you guys.
I'll come next Friday. Number one.
So yeah, well, and by the way, everything Talha's shown you today is all available on his website, isn't it?
Yeah.
And especially how to make these things, if you want to make these things.
Yeah, I actually want to learn how to make those.
Yeah, this actually, yeah, I did this, used Matplotlib's animate function for the first time too. It's good.
Yeah, I was quite interested to see such a high proportion of the tweets were blaming people. Like when
Yeah.
the no blame was only 35% of tweets about
Exactly.
Flint were not blaming someone.
Exactly. One
which
reason
is
might
quite
be
surprising.
this hashtag Flint water crisis.
But I
Yeah.
would have thought people would be like empathetic, like
Yeah.
sympathetic about
right.
it.
Yeah,
or
it was,
like,
it was very.
But just searching it once, if you search on Flint and Flint water crisis, the Flint would also get you all the Flint water crisis ones, right? Or not? No.
Like,
You just search
yeah.
on keywords.
Yeah,
You could
for-
have just searched on Flint and you got the same results.
I can filter and look at this thing, but it might be like any Flintist could be talking about anything like soccer
Yeah.
or football or anything.
What would an example of a positive tweet regarding the Flint water crisis, like great
Great.
job?
Yeah, for example,
I got
this-
lead poisoning.
yeah,
I'm
for
well
example-
happy.
Yes.
Yeah, it might be this
Extra tasty water.
expression of gratitude, like,
Like
people have.
Obama's here, we're gonna clean this up, or
Yeah, like for example, many people all around the country showed sympathy and expressed their support. So these are, go Flint, you can do it, you can overcome this. For example, these kind of things probably are positive, or like many celebrities help the community and supported the community. And they are one of the most retweeted ones, these celebrity tweets.
Was Justin Bieber involved in this?
he started it.
You-
Crisis.
Did you try and work out why it was that one county in Arizona that was in the top 10?
Yeah, I was wondering about that one.
What's that?
Arizona was in the top
Because
10.
it wasn't even, it's not even a neighbouring state, you know,
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
So I'm wondering, did they have like a similar crisis or something? I mean, like, and so they retweeted this
Yeah, and-
because they had.
They're very interested in water because they don't have as much as they like.
Well, and I was thinking about their
Yeah,
environmental.
Yeah.
stop
like,
complaining, we have no
conditions,
water.
That's right, they're in a desert, so.
Yeah, but there are a lot of other states that have deserts. So I mean, Arizona was, I think, the only
Yeah,
desert
I was
state
quite
up
interested,
there.
Yeah, another thing that I again in my plan is so this Flint
Actually,
actually
that's-
mostly a
I know
poor
Michigan
poor
people that
city,
live in
poor
Arizona,
and
so.
black. The demographics of the city. So people who show support might be having a similar demographics
Right.
due to homophily. So
Yes, they do.
so I think there is some there's a county from South
It
Carolina.
could also be, also be
Yeah,
Arizona
Georgia.
State
Georgia,
University.
yeah. And Illinois, there, I guess.
Work stuff.
Yeah, you could actually look at the sympathy tweets
Sorry,
to
Dale.
try and work out
But they could also be
you know,
Arizona State
demographics and break down
University
who was sympathetic
somehow
to
in
the
the
people.
project.
Was
Yeah.
it just like geography or is it
Yeah.
by social group?
Good. Yeah, instead of blame, I can look at different showing.
Well, one of the interesting things I think about Talha's work, and you correct me if I'm wrong, so Talha and Nessa have been spending 6 months looking at, it's a long time, looking into blame and disasters and things like that. And everyone just talks about it, right? So now Talha's trying to quantify it. I think that's quite neat.
Yeah, so actually when I went to this CIKM conference, all the others were mostly computer scientists.
What is CIKM?
So conference on information and knowledge management, and the workshop was, again, the name of the workshop is the social web for disaster management. And mostly engineers, computer scientists were there. There was someone from the crisis informatics field, Amanda B. Hughes. I don't know, you might have.
Oh, yeah, I need to see
Yeah,
spelling, but
she's
yes.
she's